The video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Father, as we step into this gate that you've opened up, and I've realized that in this season you have opened up multiple dimensions for your sons and daughters to go into, Father, places within creation that we step into, Father, as portholes to go to deeper places in your kingdom, to have greater dimensions of revelation poured into us, to literally have the flashes of light into our spirit being, where the darkness literally has to flee, in the fullness of the mysteries and the secrets that you have desired to reveal to a generation of sons and daughters to really flood in full fruition. Lord, there's a company of people, even those sitting in front of me tonight, that are so hungry for revelation, so hungry to walk in a deeper level of intimacy with you, Father, to see you, touch you, feel you, to put our arms around your neck, Father God, and to feel that physical hug as we then literally shift into you and start living, moving, and having our being in you, Lord, to understand the deep secrets that you have desired to reveal to your people, Father, for so many years. And now there's a company of people, a part of the ecclesia that's saying, yes, yes, Lord, we want to run with what you have. We're engaging you in intimacy. We're engaging you in deep revelation, Father. We're engaging you to get to know you and love on you, to get to worship you in spirit and step into all of what you have for us. And so, Father, we want to honor you and thank you and praise. We want to thank you for the angels around this building, Father. We thank you for the angel assisted to each one in this room tonight, Father. We want to welcome every angelic being in the angelic canopy, Father, even the Prince Roaring Angel of the city that really comes to these meetings. It is incredible and it's always exciting, Father, to have your kingdom with us, in us, surrounded in us, and surrounding us. It's incredible, Father. Tonight I ask for revelation. I ask you to open us up, open our spirit beings, Father, as I ask you, Father, to come in to each of us and bring us to a dimension, a place where we've never been before. Father, take us deeper, higher, wider into what is made available for us right here, right now. For the ecclesia, let's go into it, Father, and run with it in full fruition. We love you, my King. You are absolutely incredible. Before you open your eyes, I mean, you can open your eyes, but what I want to do tonight, and I've done this with the other schools, so I just want to do it here as well. I want to take you into a chamber that the Father has taken me into a couple of months ago, and he showed me a couple of things. So what I want to do is I want to take everyone here in there, if that's it's okay with you guys. It's really awesome. He showed me 12 gates. What really happened is I was sitting with him, and I've shared this before. I sat on the mountain of gold with Yahweh, and while I was sitting with him, I was sitting with Yahweh in his full capacity. So it was God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And in this place, while we were just sitting, having a good time, engaging with each other, loving on each other, pouring into me just great revelation and insight, and the Father just really opening up my heart to what He's bringing into my spirit being, into my call, into what I'm destined for over the next 5 years, and just pouring into me what I need to know for where I'm at right now. He took me down the mountain of gold through an aisle that we were walking through to basically take me into the mountain of Yahweh. But while passing through this aisle, it was a big aisle. It's not a normal house aisle. It was absolutely massive. And as we passed through, there was 6 gates on one side and 6 gates on another side. I said gates, but it was doors. And on each of these doors, by each door, there was an angel. And the doors was named love, hope, faith, honor, favor, life, realms, dimensions, intimacy, fire, friendship, and the body. And the Father said to me that I will show you, and I will have you engage with each one of these gates and each one of these doors over the next several months, and I will begin to pour revelation into you regarding what you need, regarding each one of these doors and chambers and what's in it for you to grow and mature. Yes. And so tonight we're going into the chamber of love, and as far as I have understood this, the angel that stands by those doors' name is Agape. And what the Father really wants to do in this chamber is He wants to take you into a dimension of His love for the body of Christ, for us as the church, to begin to perceive and understand what it means to love. Yes. So I want you to experience it. I want you to activate your imagination. I want you to find yourself on the mountain of gold right now. And I want you to start going. As Yahweh leads you down this set of stairs, you go down, you find yourself in this massive aisle, and you're walking towards the mountain of the Lord. And on the side, you begin to see the angel standing there. And by each angel, there's a door. 6 doors on one side, 6 doors on another, and the name of each door written on the front of it. And I want you to open this door of love, and as we go in, I want you to start looking around. The angel comes in with you, and you will find an instant radiant dimension of glory just pounding and going over you. It's almost like an instant overshadowing of the love of Yahweh, where he basically begins to overshadow you with the understanding and revelation of what it means to be loved by somebody that has agape love for you. Meaning you can do nothing wrong, and it will just love you. That his love cannot change. It is the full dimension of who Yahweh is that overshadows you. He is love, and all that love could possibly be is in you, and it's busy overshadowing you. So that we can begin to understand what it means to love. It is that 5 loves that we understand. For example, phileo, eros, and the other different loves that we understand. The brotherly love, the physical love between married couples, and the brotherly love is all combined in agape. And the Father's desire just to have that wash over you. And the last time I was in there with the group that was in front of me, I found it to be a fountain just pouring living water into this chamber. And what we did is we literally went up to this fountain and just splashed the water over your face. And the refreshment that it brought was a whole different shift. And I want you to do that right now. I have that fountain of life that is wrapped up in the fullness of the agape love of Yahweh, overshadow. Let it go in your spirit man's face. Let it literally sink into you, so that when we come back into the atmosphere, let him literally give you the capacity to go into your household, to go into your business, your place of work, to go into your area where you live, to go into your own business and your company, to go into your church, to go into the state, into the city, into the country that you live in, and breathe that dimension of love into it, so that the ecclesia can begin to understand what it means to love. Father, as we begin to walk in this place, and your radiant glory and love pours and pumps into us, I pray, Father, that the fullness of who we are will begin to overshadow. And I pray, Father, in this chamber that you will place a mantle of love on each and every person in this room's shoulder. Father, I know that the church is called to love beyond measure. Your word says that the love of God leads man to repentance. Not signs that say repent or die. Why shouldn't you go to hell? Wages of sin is death. The world doesn't care about that stuff. They want to be loved. They want to see pure love. Father, let the ecclesia be consumed by that dimension of love that pours out of you into us. Let's bring that into the atmosphere. What I want you to do is I want you to climb back up the stairs to the mountain of gold and slowly move yourself back into this room as a spirit being. And when you enter into the atmosphere of the earth, I want you to begin to breathe your breath into the atmosphere. Breathe it into the atmosphere, so that that dimension of love that just overshadowed you can go into creation. Begin forming, changing, aligning things, propelling things into place. You know, I know that we don't quite understand the value and the power of what we do in the spirit, because we still think it's just something we make up. We still think it's just an imagination gone wild. But in reality, this is exactly what's happening right now. That's your spirit being, and that's what your spirit being is experiencing. You might think, well, that's not possible because you're making this up as we go along. Now, the Father made it very clear to me. See, we operate outside of time and space. So every group that I've taken into this chamber, even over the last 3 weeks, whether it's different, whether it's the same, it doesn't matter, because in the kingdom of heaven, there's no time and space. Everything happens at the same time. So in essence, we went back into that room the day the Father showed me, and there was all this dimensions and this realms that was about to open up. It's all this love that He pours into us, so that we can be affected by what He's doing in creation. It's a dimension of who He is that He needs us to walk in. And each one of these doors, as we do this over the next couple of weeks, the idea of these chambers is for you to go in on a constant basis and let him overshadow you with each one of the angelic beings within that room. Every one of these chambers has a characteristic or a dimension that you need to have perception of, that you need to understand, and you need to go into, so that the Father can take you to a deeper, higher, and wider place in him. Father, as we step back into the atmosphere, we start breathing our breath into creation. That dimension of your pure love, that dimension of agape, is coming into the atmosphere, coming into Baton Rouge, coming into the city, coming into this state. For the matter of fact, it's been released into the state from New Orleans, Picayune, Lafayette, and now Baton Rouge. And so, Father, I ask that you will begin to align things, shift things into place. Your sons begin to understand that dimension of love. In the name of Yeshua, okay, so they come back out here. Okay, how you guys doing? Okay, just to remind you that these encounters will be different for everybody, right? Some it will be really overwhelming, for others it will be like, oh, whatever, dude. But it is really up to you, and it's understanding. Everything is about understanding, about knowledge, about revelation, having the perception of who you are as a spirit and how everything you do as a spirit being has extreme and excessive power. Now, we don't understand that because it's not visibly seen, and so we have been taught to believe only that which you do physically affects. But we're now beginning to understand that the spiritual action has a much greater effect on creation than the actual physical act. So slowly but surely things are beginning to fall into place. Exciting, right? Okay, so last week we did the mountains. You guys remember that? Those who were here? If you weren't here and you haven't listened to it yet, I would really urge you to maybe go back and listen to it. It's really key for you to find that revelation in your life and run into full fruition with it. It changes everything, because you are called as a son living out the four phases of Yahweh to rule. And we understand that. You're called to be an oracle. And there's dimensions within who you are and what you have as a son or daughter that you need to have capacity and thought of, understanding and revelation of, so you can breathe it into creation, and the things that needs to fall into place for you and what's on your scroll can slowly but surely begin to take place. Okay. Was that a mouthful or what? What do you guys think? Okay. Anyway, as a spirit, what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to talk about your finding your scroll, your calling, your book of destiny. There's some other things we're going to be going into. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to, what I want to do is I'm going to talk about some other scrolls next week. And then we'll probably start doing the gates, because it all kind of goes together. Because it also goes with the living sacrifice, which we've already done in the school. So I would urge you to kind of go back to some of those teachings just so that you have a revelation of it. Because some of these things, for you to really have it really impact you, you have to engage in that revelation. And it's all about presenting yourself as a living sacrifice, but I'll get into that. Okay, so as a spirit being, we have all been given a unique calling and mandates that are written for us in our book of destiny.
Come on.
Now you have to remind yourself that for Yahweh to have sent you into the womb, before you can be sent into the womb, you've had to agree to what was written on your scroll. So this is what happened. According to what DNA you're linked to in creation, there would be something specific written for you to do. It will be written, it will be on a scroll, it will be read to you, and you will agree to do it. So once you agree to do it, you are sent into the mother's womb. Now in the process that you have to go through, and remind yourself you're birthed into sin, right? You're not born with sin, you're birthed into sin. Then the process you go through, unfortunately, the idea is that you get born into the earth and you immediately go through the process of transformation, as your mother and your father is already spiritual, born-again sons and daughters of Yahweh, walking in the Spirit, has legislated and opened all the gateways and doorways for you, so you can stay in the mindset of being a spirit being. Now, for 99.9999% of everybody on the planet, that didn't happen. Right? We got birthed into creation and we became a big fat mess. By the time you get born again or born from above, you have every issue you can possibly find under the sun. Or was it just me? So in this process of kind of get yourself transformed, the idea is to get back to what you were originally called to do in the earth. Now, I remind you that in the process of you growing and maturing, there would be much of those things that you would be doing that is good: raising the dead, casting out demons, prophesying, using your gifts, laying hands on the sick, seeing all these great signs and wonders and miracles happening in your life and around you. All of that can be works of iniquity if it's not written on your scroll. Now you may say, well, how can it not be written on my scroll? The Bible tells us that everybody is supposed to go into the world, make disciples of all people, and reveal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons. Now, remind yourself that all these things is what we do. We have to do it. That's not something I have to do. It's something I do because of who I am. So it's not something that's forced on me. It's something I do. But if I start doing things because man has asked me to do it, now there's a process of learning and a process of growth that will take place in your life where you will do things that other people have asked you to do, which is okay. But there has to be a time in your life when you start doing the things that you're called to do. You know, the only way of ministry I ever knew was to preach a message, then do an altar call, lay hands on the sick, pray over the people, and prophesy over everybody. That was it. That was the ministry. Now we've seen great things. I said to you before, we raised 3 people from the dead and a cat. So that's 4, if I have to include the cat as something that's raised from the dead. And it was pretty incredible. But now that I'm walking out at my scroll, everything's different. I can feel how creation answers me. I can feel the response of what the Father is busy doing. Now it might not be according to what I desire, because I was raised up to believe that the success of your ministry is in the amount of people that comes to your meetings. It's in the amount of finances that you have. That was my belief system. So according to my belief system, I suck. But if I look at Yeshua, he only had 12 people. And now we understand, well, okay, he had 82. But he sent the 70, and they weren't his disciples. He had 12 people that he spoke into for 3 years. And out of the 12, he had 3 that wouldn't leave him alone. They followed him around, right? So there's a process where we begin to understand, like according to the Jethro system, if you guys understand the Jethro system, it's one man, and it's broken up into portions. So Moses is over the entire nation, and under Moses is Aaron, and under Aaron is 4, and under 4 is there 8, and under 8 is there 16, and under 16 there's 32, and so it goes on. And these leaders look over different sections. Eventually you get to some leaders that has only 10 people, that has 20 people, that has 30 people, because the bigger the amount of people that we need to look out for and after, the smaller the groups are going to be, so that we can give the impact and the discipleship that's needed. Now what we don't have in the American church is that system. So we have one pastor looking over 300 or 400 people, and you cannot disciple 300 people. You cannot disciple 30 or 40 people. I mean, yes, Jesus discipled 82, but let's be honest, the 12 were already trained, and they were helping to disciple the other 12.
That's right.
So this is the process where the Father is bringing a company of people together to understand that if you need to be a father within the community, you cannot father more than 12 people. And if Jesus is my example, then why do we want to have these massive, massive amount of people come into our meetings, which we cannot disciple, we cannot look after, we cannot train and equip, we cannot send to do what needs to be done. And of course, the whole understanding I have is what we do nowadays is we get someone under the very basic discipleship and then send them out to go do discipling. And to come out as revivalists and as evangelists and as prophets, and really they are still babies.
Yeah.
So we have the church that acts mature, walk out as if they know everything, but they know nothing. You know, how many times I had people come to me and say, you deceive God's people, you speak lies, and I'm thinking to myself, how can you come to me with that understanding if you've just given your life to Jesus less than 10 years ago, and you've never been discipled, you've never walked through the road that I've walked through, you don't know where I come from, you don't know anything about anything, but you want to quote some scriptures that you take out of context and make basically a fool of yourself. And that, of course, happens all the time. I have people say, how, don't listen to this man. He acknowledges angels. I'm like, are you joking me? Is that truly where we're at? But as soon as I found my destiny scroll and I began to walk it out, as the Father opened it up to me and it began to make sense, immediately things just started falling into place. As a matter of fact, when the Father showed me my destiny scroll, I began to read out of it and understood it. Within a week after that, I started the first spirit school. And that was the strangest thing, because I didn't even know what spirit school was. And I had only one message. I had several messages, but regarding this revelation, I had one message. And over a very, 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 very quick 6 weeks, the Father exploded these revelations into many different teachings. And He hasn't stopped ever since, because it's on my scroll. It's what I'm living out. Okay, our books of life often does not match this, so it is important that you find out what is written on your book of destiny. Now, what it means is there's more than one book for you. How many of you understand that? I mean, I have a book that I have a scroll that I've read that tells me what and who I am in the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. Now, as a king in the kingdom, operating out of sonship and out of priesthood, operating as one that walks with Yahweh in co-creation, that is seated with Him, that is made to run the kingdoms with Him, there's a different function. At this moment in the spirit realm, He's teaching me the court system, He's teaching me the different government houses that are working out of the different cities. He's showing me the capacity my mountain can carry. He's still teaching me out of the Mount of Zion, where I need to walk with Him, sit with Him, where He comes physically and engages with me. I've walked with the seven spirits, and I continue to walk with them. And from walking with the seven spirits, they would send me on certain occasions into creation to do certain things, certain mandates, but still linked to training. So it's not just stuff that I go and do because I think it's a good idea. I don't slay dragons because I think it's a good idea. Matter of fact, I would not urge anybody to just go try and slay a dragon because it's a good idea. The idea is that you don't walk to and fro unless you spend enough time up and down. I say up and down, but we know that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, right? So there's different functions. So in the spirit I have a specific function, and in the natural I have a specific function. In the natural, I'm first a husband. Right? I'm first a husband to my wife, above a father to my children. Yes. That's key. The kids come second. Kids cannot be first. You know, there's a saying that I don't like, but I love it. Happy wife, happy life. You see, if you want to walk around as the husband in the house saying that you're the priest, you have to remind yourself that the priest took full responsibility of everything. Not some things, everything. I remember counseling a friend of mine and basically came to the conclusion, it doesn't matter how wrong you think she is, you are the priest. Everything has to go through you. You have to say you're sorry when you're not sorry, when you didn't do anything. It's your responsibility to not go to bed angry. If she does, you have to wake her up, make things right. It's your responsibility to take all the weight on yourself. Well, that's not how it works. It's a partnership. You're the priest. That's the order. And yes, it is a partnership, but it's your responsibility. You want to be in charge, you want to run the household, of course, that's not how it works. I mean, understand that. Men, like, yeah, I don't know where anybody get that from. The man does not run the house. Don't agree with that tone. I know. We might think we do, but we don't.
No, we never have.
No. But that's not the point. See, submission is not what the Father had in mind. Not the way we perceive submission, because if you understand submission in an MMA fight, it is an aggressive, violent act that someone else cannot get out. Matter of fact, they have to tap out, otherwise they die. So when he says submission, that's not what he means. And again, he says submit one to another. So it is a covenant that operates together and work together. And from that covenant, I return to my children, and from there I turn to my ministry. Right? So the ministry is not the most important thing, but I'm called to look after my wife above everything else. I'm called to look after my children, and then I'm called to work in the ministry according to what's written on my scroll for what I'm to do in creation. So what I have to do in creation right now is write books and have these spirit schools. That's all I have to do. So what I'm busy with right now is I'm busy writing my first book, which is kind of irritating. because YouTube does this thing where they will put everything you say into a writing, and then you have to edit it.
Oh my.
And help me, Jesus. I cannot for the life of me make out what I'm saying. Neither can they, obviously. Because what I said and what they say I said is two different things. Matter of fact, what they say I say is basically gibberish. I think I was speaking in tongues and they try to interpret it. But it's like, what? And of course, when I say Yahweh, they say Yahoo. So I have to read and then think of Yahoo? Was I giving an email? Then I have to go, okay, wait, okay, that's Yahweh. It's really just a pain in the butt. But it's going pretty good. I'm only doing 10 chapters because I've got 700 messages, so there's quite a couple of books in there. But I'm going to do 10 chapters for the first book, and then I'll start at the beginning and see how that goes. Hopefully it'll do what it's supposed to. Basically it'll be for the spirit school, so you have a handbook with you to go through.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, hopefully, eventually that's what will happen. When I get that.
Yahoo.
Yahoo. Praise you, Yahoo. Now the very important thing is that God is not waiting to reveal your scroll to you at some time in the future. I need to understand that. It's not His job to reveal anything to you. It is your job, according to your desire, to go in and get what you need to function in society according to what you were destined to be. That's one of the favorite things James mentioned. It says faith without works is dead.
Yes.
You cannot just skedaddle and think everything's going to fall into place. It just doesn't work like that. It's work and work and work. Push it as hard as you can. We were all designed to live out our scrolls from the start of our lives. You can't have mandates for things to do in heaven that are different from what you work out in earth. And that's something we have to understand. I have an eternal destination and I have an eternal purpose, but I have small purposes and destinations within the, how can I say this? The earth that we're in right now. That which is not eternal. So there's certain things I have to do. I'm not going to have spirit schools for eternity. Thank you, Jesus. We are not going to have to learn like this for eternity. I prefer infused knowledge about teachings like this any day. But the revelation and understanding regarding the fullness of what is infused in my spirit to go through my soul and my body. So there'll be a day that we'll have that full capacity of training given to us, but not right now. Now we have to engage in what has already been given and go as deep and as hard as we can. But it's our responsibility, right? I mean, I could never have walked out in as much as what I've walked out up to this day, which is only 7 years ago that I started, if I did not engage every single day. It's your responsibility to do that. No one can do it for me. Nobody can engage for me. And of course, it's not just about engagement, it's all about intimacy. That's why everybody in this room already has a foundation of relationship with Yahweh, because that's what we've been growing in, and that's what we've engaged in over the last couple of years, so that we can already have some kind of a foundation regarding relationships. So we get to this type of stuff, everything we do is based on a relationship and intimacy with Him. It's not just about engaging and speaking to angels. It's not just about desiring to do this and to go into the kingdom and to go on some kind of a mandate, to slay a dragon and to get a mountain. It's got nothing to do with any of that stuff, although it has everything to do with it. The focus is intimacy with Him, relationship, engaging, worshiping, glorifying, magnifying Him, and seeing that picture as your daily walk. And also beginning to understand what it means to worship, right? Because we've had a picture of worship and it's not that.
Come on.
So it's just to change the view and our belief system.
Right.
We can do more legislation in the heavenly realms than on earth by starting to go into the heaven with a few which may lead us to a bench around a mountain. And I remind you that what we just did now, going into the chambers, has a much greater effect because everybody could experience it. Now, we might not have experienced it in the full measure that it was possible, because the idea is to ascend together and literally be able to see everybody around you and engage in what is being revealed right there. But the idea that the Father obviously has is that we begin to understand as a company of people with the same revelation, but we get to go in, and that opens up a realm of revelation for each of us that takes us to another place. That's what that bench that surrounds your mountain really means. So it's not just you. It's not just what you perceive and what you think it is. When everybody comes together and has a revelation that adds to the puzzle and gives you the story that's supposed to be spoken. If that makes any sense. I'm melting, so if I get really small, just hold on to something. It's important to deal with some foundational things in the spirit realm before embarking on earthly ventures. Satan is called to walk to and fro, seeking who he may devour. And what the church has been doing for the last 500 years, I say 500 might be more than that, but what the church has been doing for the last 500 years, we've been walking to and fro, seeking who we can devour. And I don't know if you used to do this, but I used to wake up and the first 25 minutes of my morning engagement with Yahweh was binding every demon that breathed. Any sound I heard, anything I could think of, I see a shadow move, I see something, and I have attacked Satan in every aspect. I created some demons, did all kinds of things. Everybody did that, and it was fun, right? I bind you in the name of Jesus, your spirit of I don't know what, and your spirit of I don't care, and all this stuff that we should make up. And of course it was good because there was victory, but we forget that that is really answering their call. Because they want acknowledgement, and so that's why they're active around our lives, so then we give them the acknowledgement, and that increases their presence. That's why after a victory, you're overshadowed by an attack from the enemy. How many of you remember those days? So what happens is Satan comes in, looks for a fight, gets a fight. Nowadays, the Bible never said that. The Bible never said, well, Satan's going to come look for a fight. When he does, fight him back. We have authority and we can do that, but make sure your life's right. Right? I mean, you can't dance with the devil tonight and tomorrow you want to kick him out. And I remember doing this. I remember sitting outside and I was backslidden. Me and Claire was already living together, sleeping together. I was not in church. There was no English in church. I was smoking marijuana, taking drugs, doing all kinds of things, but I was trying to get out of it very aggressively, but didn't work. So I was in and out many, many years ago. I remember sitting outside of a family member's house, and he was possessed. Just came out of jail, high up in Satanism as a high priest. I mean, in the jail, he got tattoos in his eyes to signify that he is of the highest order, meaning that if anybody wants anything done, it has to go through him first. And so he comes into their house, he wants to marry a family member, and it's this big process, and he's just going crazy. So I'm sitting outside, smoking a cigarette, help me Jesus, and praying in tongues, and then this name, Zargon, comes up. Now, I didn't know that now, but if I look at it now, Zargon was not a Mickey Mouse pervert. It was a dragon that had a mountain and had the ability and the capacity and the right to occupy in that life in its full measure. Okay, I have danced with the devil previously. I'm sleeping with my girlfriend. I'm living a sinful life. I'm not covered in the fullness of Yahweh. I go into that room where he's possessed by. It was freaky for me because I was not prepared for what was about to happen. So I go in and I say, Sargon, and everything changes in that room. He's like, who are you? I'm like, seriously, dude? Gustav. He did not know who I was. He said, like Paul said, I know Paul, I know Jesus, but who the freaking hell are you, dude? Yeah. You look just like me. We were dancing together last night. So I'm like, I command you in the name of Jesus, come out. And he looks at me like this. He picks up a iron jack. Those triangle jacks. And he throws it right at me. That block of my arm, it hits my arm, almost breaks my arm off. And I'm like, give me a second, I'm going to get out of here now. So I realized very quickly that that was not a very good idea to do something like that. Of course, my life changed, not because of that per se. I went back and Yahweh kind of overshadowed myself, my wife. We separated for a year before we got married. to conceal that marriage and to bring all that the Father has promised us back into full fruition. And everything changed. I've realized now that I just walk into a room and demons leave. Now, demons don't always have to leave. How many do you understand? Demons have the right to stay in your life if that's what you choose.
Yeah.
And we don't per se choose it consciously. We could choose it subconsciously because it's all we know. It might not be a demonic entity that's going to have you rip off your clothes and eat a cat, right? But it is going to be a stronghold in your life. It's going to have you think in a certain way to keep you from engaging in all that the Father has for you. And Satan is not out there on a big billboard telling you what he's doing. It's always something that you cannot perceive or understand or think for 1 second would be anything in your life that's keeping you. I don't know where I had to go on that. Are you guys okay?
Yes.
So it is really important for you to deal with the fundamental things in the spirit realm before you start going into interventions. Meaning that build a relationship and a covenant with Yahweh at a deep, deep level first. Get to know Him. You know, I read scriptures when I was just a baby in Christ, and I was thinking to myself, if I don't bear any fruit, if I don't bear any fruit, you're going to cast me in the fire? I'm thinking, I'm not bearing any fruit. At this point, I've already broken my rededicator. Now, I've given my life to Jesus so many times, I don't think I can even do it anymore. You know, because they ask you in the church, if there's anything in your life that is not 100% according to what God wants you to be, you need to come and re-establish your covenant with Jesus. I don't know why half the church doesn't get on and come forward. I didn't understand.
I did.
Because I got every single time. And I would have these people sit next to me that was my students, my fellow students, and they'd be like, really? Again? And I'm like, yeah, there's still some things in my life that's not right. Maybe he just reword himself, you know. But the idea behind all of this is we have to get to the place in our walk with Yahweh where we have engaged with Him. You know, I read scriptures that says this, and I never had the deeper revelation of that scripture, right? We now understand that that's not even what it means. And a matter of fact, if you go into the culture and into what it really means as one who talks about the vine and understands winery, you don't cut the branches off that doesn't bear fruit. Right? We've gone through this. You cut the branches and you bind them together so they can grow into each other, and the ones that didn't bear fruit will bear fruit, and the ones that did bear fruit will bear more fruit. But they don't cut it off. And of course, they didn't toss it in a lake of fire as we think, oh, that was hell. The outside fire where all the calf was thrown onto was called hell. Of course, that's not the heart of God. He doesn't want you to be thrown in the fire. It's not His heartbeat. You know, well, if two and two go to a house, and if they don't want to receive the gospel, you shake dust off your feet, take a piece and leave. They stuff you. I want nothing to do with you, you piece of rubbish. How dare you not accept the gospel I bring you? And that's what I mean. I've even heard people preach this several times in my life until I went into the culture. The culture is completely different. Right? We've done this, but you know what the culture is, right? The high priest would walk, the rabbi would walk in front, and the dust that comes from his feet will collect at the bottom of the row of the disciple that walks right behind him, the second in charge. And that is literally presents the honor, the glory, the fire, the fullness of what the rabbi covers or carries, overshadows and brought to the next in line. So when Yeshua said to his disciples, shake the dust off your feet, that's the blessing he was talking about. Not what we have in our mindset. Well, you dare not to listen to what I say, but I preach the gospel, I'll stuff you. That's not the heart of the Father. So I would urge you in your walk with Yahweh to go as deep in relationship as you possibly can. Because it's in relationship that your scroll's revealed. How you guys doing? There's never only just one way, but we are going to go through some ways. For me personally, I was already going into the courts, and so I found myself in the court of scrolls, and while I was in this massive court with thousands and thousands of scrolls, one scroll came out towards me. It had two names on, Gustav Le Roux, Son of Fire. I opened it, I could not see anything on it or perceive anything of it. And I remembered as I've read the Bible, well, eat it. So that's what I did. I just ate it. Then in my life, in the process that I was in at that moment, I would always, after I've engaged something in the heavens, I would go and present myself to Yahweh as a living sacrifice. And that I didn't know at that point, but that's kind of the process you want to go through to redeem that which your scroll says. So in the process of walking with Yahweh, I would open up the scroll, I would open myself up by going through the process of presenting myself to him as a living sacrifice. And in this time, the scroll just came up. It didn't come up in words that I could read. It came up as a hologram that I could see. So the hologram was I was lying flat on my face. I was soaking in one of the churches that I was about to minister in. And in this time of soaking, my spirit would be anchored in a place, massive. And it would just be anchored in one specific spot. And then from there it would multiply into many, many, many different cities in that specific place. Then the spirit mass, you know, so my spirit, let's try and explain this right. My spirit was this massive being that's anchored, and then from there it will multiply into the cities, and then from this specific position where this massive spirit being, myself, was standing, I would multiply into a different state. And so then it would get multiplied into different cities, and so it would multiply into another state, and into all the cities, multiply into another state in all the cities. And it did that in all 50 states. And then when I came out of it, slowly but surely I began to realize what just happened. And before I could do anything, I started my first spirit school in New Orleans. I didn't even know it was a spirit school at that point. The pastor just asked me to come and minister there, we'll do one meeting. The one meeting went to 6 weeks. 6 weeks went to every week. And that's been going on for 5 years. And of course, from out of that, the blueprints of all the other schools opened up. And of course, there's been many schools. Some have closed, some have still open, some in other states for a weekend, some online. There's so much happening. There's 725 messages on YouTube at this moment. Of course, many are the same messages, but every single one of these messages is taught from a different place. So I'll just listen to them over and over again because they are so different. And much of them I feel most of the time, and I don't know how to put this on understanding, but most of these messages, especially the first one I preached out of the blueprint, it felt so many times that I wasn't really even talking, that I was speaking in tongues in English. Because afterwards I would listen to what I said and I'd be like, wow, I didn't have that revelation. I don't know that stuff. Where did I get that from? That's pretty incredible. And I would listen to these messages over and over again. But when I edit them, I would take out certain things that I didn't like and things that I do like. I would put, because I wanted to make it right for those who are going to listen to it. And having to go through these messages, I realized this is what the Father's called me to do. Then in the process, I engaged with the angelic that was part of my ministry. His name is Zephkiel, and of course Google knows everything. And Google told me that Zephkiel is an archangel, and what this specific archangel does that's assigned to the bloodline is it comes in and it shows you how to teach those around you to understand the things you engage.
Yes, indeed.
And I thought that was absolutely incredible.
Yes.
And then of course I've got passion and the focus next to me that's always with me. And there's many, 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 many other angels that we've engaged. And it's all part of getting you to your destiny and walking you through your scroll, which I personally think is incredible. Then remind yourself that desire is one of these keys. You have to desire it for it to really come into fruition. Because this is not something you can go read a book on. This is something you have to engage by desire. You want to know. And of course, your focus is not on your scroll. Your focus is on intimacy with Him. Okay, spend as much time in the heavenly realm seeking your scroll and asking the Father to imprint it on your heart. Sometimes you feel more than you see. Now remind yourself, you cannot only feel.
Come on.
Okay? You are not blind. There's no such thing as spiritual blindness. That's a religious ball of poop. Okay, your spiritual eyes cannot be blind. A lack of teaching, a lack of training, a lack of exercise. That's all.
That's good.
Okay, your spirit is not blind. Your spirit's perfect. So your spirit can see, can perceive, can understand. It's your soul that has issues. Right, so you go through the transformation of your soul daily. That's why we engage the Word. That's why we pray, we seek His face. That's why we fast. That's why we go into the heavens physically. You want to go in with your spirit and your soul. Right? That's why you want to engage in the night watch and have an understanding of how to do that and why you need to do that, so that you can begin to gain that revelation that you need. Okay, we all have the ecclesia as part of our scroll and can begin legislating there. Now, everyone here is not in churches, but the idea is that we're all part of a group in some way, fashion, or form. If you're part of a group, you're part of a city. Wherever you live, wherever you do, whether your kids are in school, there's so much that we can legislate. There's so much that we can do in the city, in the town, in the area that we stay in, that there's always an activity. And of course, it's all about being in a group. That's why iron sharpens iron, and you don't want to be doing this by yourself. That's why I always urge people, don't leave your church. If you're in a church, stay there and legislate the things into place. And I say this, I remember going to a church one day, and I wasn't really in the mood to be there. I personally don't like going to church, only but because of the religious connotation to it and just the man-made aspect of it. And it's like, oh, Jesus, help me. Can we not hear another sermon about the cross and you crucified for another million times? And then everybody has to get prophesied over, and everybody has their hands, and everybody's in a weak state, and the church is falling apart, and everyone's sick and dying out of Jesus. But I'm sitting in the chairs, and I'm starting to overshadow the pastor. And by overshadowing him doesn't mean that I want to change anything. I just wanted to breathe the breath of Yahweh into him and just have the capacity. Because the Father said to me, this man is very precious to me. And I mean, I don't know him at this point at all very much, but I felt his spirit. I knew that he was still in the church age, and I just started overshadowing him. And so he started preaching and started ministering exactly like I thought he would, but at a whole different dimension. I wasn't irritated, I wasn't frustrated. I thought it was pretty good. It was a good, solid word, and very powerful. But afterwards, the lady that was with me, she was blown away. She said, I've been in this church for several years, and I've never, ever heard him preach like that. Never heard him prophesy like that. Never seen him minister at that measure ever in my life before. So you have much to legislate in your city, in your state, in your group, in your church. Much can change. You don't have to go speak to your pastor. 99% of the time, I don't understand this. And we understand that, well, most of the time we get shut down. We get told to not do this. It's from the devil. Because everything's from the devil. Didn't you know that? And I was also being told many times, you're too hard on the church. But I will knock the church down if I have to. Because I'm sick and tired of the man-made poop that's going on in our churches. Now, I love the church as the people, but the system is not of God. And I don't care who you are and what you say, the system is not of God. Okay, we cannot go to please man. It is about Yahweh. It's not a democracy, it's a theocracy. Now, people don't tell you what to do as the leader. You are the one that makes the decision, and you are supposed to be the one in charge as operating out of the face of Yahweh. And of course, the pastor cannot be in charge. Now, I don't know, sometimes the pastor is in charge and he functions as an apostle. That's different. So don't misunderstand. Just because your title is a pastor, but you function as an apostle, doesn't mean that you can't be in that position. But most of the churches are run by pastors that's maternal. And that's a problem, because that reflects what's in the earth. Because 99% of, let's say more than 63% of all children are unfathered. So what it reflects in the church is that, well, 63% of all the churches is unfathered. They only have a mother figure, which is the pastor. The pastor is there to be maternal. Right? That's why we want to gather and hold them tight. Nobody say anything, talk to anybody, don't do anything outside the church, don't speak to anybody outside the church. If you want to do something, talk to me. If I told you not to do it and you go do it anyway, you're in rebellion, so it's in witchcraft, so we don't want to be part of what you do anymore. And unfortunately, there's much truth in some of that, but that's not how it works. If you read the Bible, it does not operate like that. It's never operated like that. It's a man-made system because we want to. But once I got my scroll, everything changes. Everything changes. There are domains in society that you can think about, that you can have in your heart, that you can desire to change, and that might be part of what's on your scroll. For example, family, business, governmental, education, welfare, healing, media, arts, entertainment. we begin to understand that the Father wants us to be involved in all of those things. Nothing is separated out of the perfect will of Yahweh. You know, I always say we've had this wrong for so many years. You know, trying to get away from politics, trying to not mix the two, but everything has to be in the governmental structure of who we are according to what's written on our scrolls. Right? If you feel no emotion for any cause, you may need to read a lot more about the needs in society linked with your passion. Because I understand everybody has a passion. Everyone's directed into some specific way that you want to go into. You know, I mean, I hate abortion, but I'm not driven to go into that area. You know, I have many different perceptions and understandings. I hate seeing the poor. I can't actually walk past someone that's poor without giving them somebody. You know, you take this, baby. You know, I just kind of always feel that I need to sow something into their lives. But I'm not called to work with them full time. Now, you know, why don't you go work in the streets? Why don't you go do something? Why don't you go preach the gospel in the middle of New Orleans and get vomited on? Well, because I'm not called to that. Well, you're just scared. No, I'm not. Matter of fact, no one's going to vomit on me, I promise you that. I was reading this on Facebook over the weekend, how people get vomited on and spat on and all kinds of stuff. Okay. We're doing this for the gospel. So turn or burn. See how that's working to you. But I'm not called. That's not where I'm driven to. Have I done that? Yes, several times in my life. But when I saw my scroll, I realized the Father's called me to the ecclesia. He's called me to train and equip a company of people that is ready to step up and go deeper, higher, wider into what Yahweh has for them. And that's what I'm doing. I can't do what others want me to do. I've tried, and then I get irritated, and the Father says to me, why do you eat what's not on your plate? Now, let's be honest. You can't eat what's not on your plate because it's not on your plate. So, I mean, you're just making stuff up and doing things that's really not necessary. Visit the scroll room and visualize your book of destiny and open the pages of the book. See what comes out of there. Repeat this for future clarification. Do this by faith. You know, if you can't physically find yourself in this room, go in there by faith. Open your scroll by faith. You know, Grant Mahoney makes a statement where he says the first time he stood before the Father in this court, he opened up his scroll, and what he would always do is go right in the back to see when he's going to die. And the first time he opened his scroll, it said 87. And so he kept on reading some of the stuff and went into his destiny, what the Father's called him to. And several years later, he went in again and opened his book on the back, and it just changed. It went from 87 to 107. So understand as well that as we engage by faith, much of what's written can change. Because the Father really doesn't destine you to die. On your scroll it might be written because of your perception at the time that you open it, but the idea is that we change and begin to walk in the glorified state the Father's called us to be in before we reach the end of our scroll and we die. It's not His desire. Your spirit knows some things before your mind. Begin to list things that you feel passionate about and what contribution you most want to make in what you form. Think of things in your life. What makes you righteously angry? Seek to identify a few words that sum up what this contribution is. Identify small steps that you can take to outwork this or see a coach. So there's some things to work out your destiny that you can do the natural. You know, because you want to find out what you need to do physically in ministry before you start doing things in the spirit. You know, I started teaching this before I physically started functioning in the spirit realm. Now, I've been in the spirit realm before I started with my destiny, but I've had to figure out what I need to do so that I can be in the right aligned place for the Father to start pouring into me. Because I don't understand, if the Father wants to pour into you and you're here and He's here, then what He's pouring in, you're going to miss. That's why alignment's key. Seek your men in white linen because they can help clarify your scroll. You know, there's people assigned to your life because of where you're called to go to. And so the desire of the men in white linen, the men of old, the saints of old, is to give you batons and mandates and scrolls to engage so you can be propelled in what you're called to. And it's also to align you to get all that which is supposed to fall into your lap as one called to do specific things. Does that make sense? The more we know about ourselves, the more heaven can clarify things for us. So you may wish to do this calling engagement the Father has desired for you. And this is to get to know yourself. You know, get to know what type of leader you are. There's tests you can take. I know that, well, that's very spiritual. It's not even a Christian test, but find out what type of leader you are. Some are called to be leaders in a manner of how you command people to do things, or how you work with groups in certain manners, certain ways. Other people are called to really just work by themselves and every now and then ask someone to help them or ask someone to assist. There's different ways of doing things. Get to know who you are and how you can become what you're supposed to be. Because everybody can't engage the way I engage. Everybody's not going to divide soul and spirit the way I divided soul and spirit. Everyone is not going to have the revelation in the measure that I received it. Everyone's not going to walk in understanding the way Ian Clayton does. You know, everyone has a measure that he engages with until he's fully matured. And we all mature in different ways. Right? Look at my 13-year-old. He's got friends that's some older than him, some in the same age group, some a little bit younger, but he is the most mature. Some might be more mature in other areas, but they are not quite mature in the same way. The one might be more mature in his growth physically, others might be more mentally, some might be more spiritually, but everyone's not exactly the same, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So understand that you're going to grow in a different way, but you have to find out who you are. Right? Get your passion, the things you desire, the things you like, your love, the way you seek the Father, the way you study the Bible, the way you meditate, and let the Father engage with you through what you do. And if things need to change, then let it change by itself as you engage Yahweh. Right? Many things that's to align, and I said this several times. My example of a father was my father, right? And that's logic. But he wasn't a very good father. Now I say he wasn't a very good father, but if I look at my father compared to any other father out there, my father was phenomenal. He didn't go out to pubs to drink. He was always at home. He was always there. He didn't work much hours, but he worked very hard. So he was always there, although he was an alcoholic. He didn't spend time with me, he didn't engage with me, but that's the example I had as a father, and he was consistent in being there. So I never thought for 1 second that the Father will leave me or forsake me because of my example of a father. But others don't perceive it in the same way. You know, okay, my father didn't want much to do with me, so that's another issue I have. Or maybe the Father's just ignoring me. You know, maybe I don't know what I did. Maybe I did something wrong and doesn't want to spend time with me, or I don't understand, because that's my perception of a father. But I know he's there because he's always there, but he's just not in the mood for me. Or he doesn't think that I'm capable of doing what he's asked me to do, so he's just not asking me to do it anymore. That is my perception. So that's something that's changed in me. But it's not the same like that for everybody else. You guys still okay? Yes. Trying to go through this as quick as possible. It is important to deal with the spiritual blockages before building something in the natural. So, forming a bench over something is helpful. What it means with a bench is, if you look at the structure of heaven, it's got 3 and 7. That's the bench of 3 and the bench of 7. You get the bench of 12. So understand that 3 is the unbroken cord, right? 7 represents the power of Yahweh, which is the resurrected power. And then, of course, you have 12, which is government. That's why everything in the Bible is structured with 12 as the governmental structure, but 10 being the perfect structure in government. So it doesn't represent government, it just represents perfect structure in government. So when it talks about a bench, you want to form a group of people around you that is strong, that you can engage with, that will propel you, that will love you and care for you and take you into where you want to go to. I don't understand. You can't be, and I'm not saying that leave your church because they're not going to engage with you, but find people that will engage with you and be wise in what you engage with. I can't share, and I don't. My pastor is not in South Africa. My pastor is not in America. He's in South Africa. So I don't engage with him. And of course, he was in a mega church, so I hardly ever get to speak to him. But there was district pastors that I was very close with that I can share anything with. I had my own pastor in South Africa, which I could engage with and speak with, but I didn't engage in this stuff yet. So by the time I started engaging with this stuff, I was a pastor. So I didn't have to go to anybody. I could go to my spiritual father, and he perceived and understood the things that I engaged with. And he understood, and he wasn't always too excited about my revelations because he didn't perceive it at the time, but eventually he got around, and I wasn't very impressed with some of the things he engaged. Because we're all at different levels. Right? But I had a company of people that I could go to. Ian Clayton, Justin Abraham, these men have spoken into my life. Brian and Samantha, even Stephen McGee and Jane Schroeder, they've spoken into my life several times. And sometimes somebody doesn't even have to speak. It's just being in the presence of those that love you and care for you that propels you. Sometimes I would go visit my spiritual father and he wouldn't say a word to me. We would just have a coffee together. We would just talk about normal things. But I would leave there lifted up.
That's right.
So it's really important to have that company of people that's like-minded and thinks the way you do. But I'm not saying leave your church, because we need to be in the church so that we can begin to propel it into place and alignment. That's why some of my meetings is held in churches. I remember this one in Lafayette. We're in a church. I've never been associated with that church, never spoken into the life of that church, never went to a meeting in that church. Matter of fact, I struggle to say the name of that church. Episcopalian. I mean, who doesn't struggle to say that? Episcopalian. But in the time that we've been there, they've changed leadership. So I don't know if we had any effect on that, but there's so much that's happened in that city, so much that we've done in the spirit, that there has been a change in leadership and governance of that church within the first 6 months that we were there. So there's alignment. Something is changing. Something is happening. And it was so interesting. They didn't ask us to leave. They asked us to change weeks. Which is so weird because it wouldn't really make a difference. We're there every other week. So we just had to change weeks around so that they can have their youth groups every other week and we could have ours every other week. But we're still there, which is really nice. The Father has called us to begin to understand how we need to remove these blockages out of our lives so that what He's going to pour into you can stick. Because there's much you're called to that you haven't heard from the church yet. I mean, I did never know that part of my calling was to have authority over certain states within America. As a spirit being, not as a human being, as a spirit being, where I get to go into the spirit and legislate certain things into place and govern certain mountains that the Father has given me to occupy in full measure. Where out of that place I get to legislate things into place from out of the kingdom of heaven according to what's written on the scroll for the state. And then engage with the leaders in the spirit of that state that I've never even been to or even gone to or preached in, and get to legislate things into place out of the kingdom of heaven, out of the courts, into that state to begin to align things and propel things into place. That's just a very small portion of what I believe the Father has called me to do, and I have no understanding of that because no one's ever told me that you should be doing stuff like that. And that's just a small portion, but I had to align who I am, body, soul, and spirit, so that the Father can pour into me things that I cannot perceive or understand in the natural. How are you guys doing? So the Father is asking you, before you carry on doing the things that you're doing, to start desiring to go find your scroll. Because much of what I did for several years of my life was works of iniquity. And works of iniquity is things you do out of your own self. Things you think is a good idea, things that sounds good, but it's not. Although it's not bad, because healing the sick and raising the dead is not bad. But I could continue to do that for several years and not be doing the things that I'm destined to do. I have a great, powerful ministry and see great miracles and signs and wonders, but never do the things that I'm supposed to do in the Spirit. I'm doing works of iniquity. I'm doing my own thing instead of doing what the Father has given me or asked me to walk in its full fruition. So the Father is just calling a company of people to come together and to understand what needs to happen. So I'm going to close with this. Meaning that could take another 45 minutes. No, I'm just joking. I'm quickly going to go through this. Okay. See, we are told that we have quite a bit on our scroll from the Bible, like go and make disciples, not go and plant churches, love God and love others as yourself. So no one can really say that they know nothing of what is in their books of destiny. The issue is that I see too is that a lot are a bit uncomfortable considering they have a prophet, apostle, a kingly, and a priestly function, and want to find other things to do. See, what I'm saying here is we have to remind ourselves that although we were taught that there's prophets and apostles and priests and teachers and the fivefold in the church, we are of a higher order. Now that doesn't mean that we are of a higher order than the prophets and the apostles. I'm just saying that you are called to do more than just that. If I'm living out of the full faces of Yahweh, the Father has called me in some way, fashion, or form to operate as a leader in the community, to operate in leadership in his full capacity. If I'm living out of the full faces of Yahweh, according to what's on my scroll, I'm going to be an oracle, a prophet in some way, fashion, or form. I might not be in the office of a prophet, but I'm going to speak prophetically into a state or a nation somewhere or in some place. Maybe into a group of people, maybe into one or two people in my life, but I'm going to speak with a prophetic voice that's going to change and align things. I'm going to act as a priest somewhere in my life, whether I'm male or female. I'm going to step into the gap for a city, for a state, for a company of people, so that I can have the Father judge me before he judges them. Because they're not in or over him, under him, and he's in and over me. So when he's in and over me, he can judge me, and the judgment can go through me to them.
Yes.
So somewhere in your life, you're going to have that. And then, of course, the Father is calling a company of people that understand and perceive the role of being a king. And, of course, with kingship comes judgment. And how to judge and why to judge and what the judgment brings. It brings life. And that's all part of the things we need to begin to engage. So he's calling a company of people that will perceive and understand what we need to consider and what we need to go into as hard and as aggressive so that we can begin to walk out what's written on our scrolls. And it's your responsibility to go into the court of scrolls to see what is on your scroll, to see what is on your destiny scroll, what is written for you to do, so that you can begin to do the things that's written for you to do. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to do things that's not going to benefit us in the long run. Because his desire is to get you to the place in your walk with Yahweh where all that he has for you comes into full fruition. Let's stand. Father, we just want to thank you and praise you and absolutely worship you tonight, Lord, as we stand before you, as we come into agreement with what you have for us regarding our destiny scrolls, Father. Some in this room has already gotten their destiny scrolls. Some is already walking in it. Some has no understanding of it. So, Father, we ask you in the name of Yeshua that you'll open up the gates and the doors for us right now to perceive and understand, to have revelation of what is written on our scrolls, our callings, on our book of destiny. Where do we need to go? How do we need to get it? How do we need to perceive and understand it? And how we need to come in to the blueprints of what needs to be done for us so that we can start walking in creation and in heavens, doing what we are called to do according to your perfect will, according to what was written for us to walk in and have that full fruition in our walk in creation and in the kingdom of heaven. In the name of Yeshua, Father, I pray that you'll open our hearts up, let that be poured into us, and let's shift into alignment with all of what's ours and run with it in full fruition. I pray for a blessing of everyone in this room, Lord. I ask that you'll give us favor and propel us into all that's available for right now. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.